Hello and welcome to Brexit, a country divided. In April this year, Theresa May called a general election to strengthen her position with Brexit negotiations with European leaders. But with clarity over how Britain will look still some distance away, and with the added uncertainty of a general election, the country remains divided by class, age, location and even household. We're here today to discuss Brexit with an intelligent audience and a distinguished panel who I'll get to in just a second.
Hello, my name's Rachel Collinson and I'm the business spokesperson for the Green Party, and I am a very proud Remainer.
I'm Alan Craig and I'm a committee member of UKIP and have stood as a candidate and plan to stand again as a candidate in the forthcoming general election for UKIP. I am a very proud and committed Brexiteer.
Hello, I'm Alka Segal-Cuthbert and I voted to leave the EU.
Hello, I'm Annelisa Batista. I'm here as a EU student and immigrant. I couldn't vote, but I stand for the Remain.
I'm Paul Oakley. I'm the second UKIP villain on your panel tonight. I am a member of the UKIP National Executive Committee.
I'm Anita Pollock. I've lived in Newham for 40 odd years and in the Labour Party here, and I'm a very firm Remainer.
My name is Paul Reynolds. I'm the Liberal Democrat parliamentary candidate in this general election in West Ham. As a Liberal Democrat, as you can well imagine, we are strongly in favour of the European Union and the United Kingdom staying in.
Theresa May has recently suggested that there is a sense of coming together after the Brexit divisions and that our shared values can and must bring us closer together. Do you believe that today's Britain post-Brexit have real shared values?
I'm not going to listen to what she has to say. Just as we are a multicultural society, we are a multi-philosophical society as well.
Does Britain have shared values? I think most of us do. But I think there is a small, hard core of people in this country who have been whipped up by the Leave campaign to think that we're coming out of the EU because we want no more immigration. And I think that's not the Britain that I believe in.
Hate crime has seen a dramatic increase since the referendum. Do you believe this was caused by the rhetoric of the debate leading up to the referendum? And if so, do you think it has caused lasting divisions?
It's clear that there is a racism increasing in this country, and I can feel that on my own skin.
And Alan, as a Leaver, how does it make you feel knowing that many people who have chosen to settle in this country as their home feel that way?
As a rich country, we should accept a significant number of refugees, genuine refugees. Two, we should also accept immigrants. However, the sheer pace and rate of immigration into our society has been devastating for many people.
Nigel Farage stood in front of a bus which was predominantly covered in brown faces. Would you not accept that that has, to some degree, contributed to the rise in xenophobia?
Absolutely not. Firstly, I refute that there has been an increase in hate crime. All the police forces that have been asked about this have said no. Secondly, regarding the breaking point poster, that was not actually on the side of the bus, it was on the side of the truck. But it's okay to use that poster in the Guardian to say, look at all these poor widows and orphans who are coming over to Europe. Apparently it's not okay to say that Europe, not Britain, but certainly Germany, Austria, Sweden are really struggling under the influx of migrants. So I make no apology for that whatsoever.
This is the problem that we've got. What happens after Brexit? What happens after Brexit? There's no longer the EU to blame. Who's going to get the blame? The immigrants are going to get the blame for all the problems. And that's what I fear, the country being divided and turning inwards on itself.
Do you think that the UK will be better or worse off when we leave Europe in terms of how the environment will fare?
I hope that we'll be better off, but I fear that we may not be, because Theresa May has guaranteed the wonderful environmental protections that we've got from the EU until 2020. I want a UK where people can breathe the air and it's not toxic, where people aren't getting sick and the bees aren't dying because of neonicotinoids. It's the EU that's given us those protections and the ability to take the government to court.
Will Brexit finally mean that someone tackles the growing north-south divide?
The north-south divide certainly needs tackling, but I can't see the Tories doing it.
Alka, did you have something to say on the back of that?
The kind of investment that would be needed to expand its growth so that everybody can benefit from it, and it would require the kind of massive investment and the relocation of investment away from the kind of small bubble in the southeast.
In the north, we've seen a series of missed opportunities, and the subsequent governments, both Margaret Thatcher's era and Tony Blair's era, they closed down the coalfields and didn't replace them with anything. Communities devastated by this closing down of industry and not replacing it with anything. What I want to see in the north is actual decent businesses with decent jobs, and that's not dependent on the EU. That's dependent on our government investing in the right places.
If I could just move on to the penultimate question. Equality and human rights laws, including those protecting people on grounds of religion, sexual orientation and age, could be lost when we leave the EU. How can we ensure that these continue to progress for those groups of people?
The very idea that we're suddenly going to become some sort of evil, narrow-minded, discriminatory country after we leave the EU is nonsense.
What I'd like to say, though, is how are you going to guarantee that those kind of laws are preserved under an absolutely rampant Tory government? They fought them tooth and nail every inch of the way, decade after decade after decade. What are we going to see in the future?
Is it fair for a referendum topped by the older generation to stand, given it will be the younger generation who have to live with it the longest? Alka, could you come in?
Well, I think that's probably been the most poisonous, horrible interpretation to come out of the Brexit thing that I've come across.
Could I take a question from the girl at the back, followed by you?
You still can't get around the fact that the younger generation did not want Brexit, and they have to live with the consequences. And frankly, the signals that's sent is that yes, even if you do vote, it doesn't count because you're young, and it brings up a young generation that doesn't even believe in democracy anymore.
Young people voting in the referendum. Well, back in 1975, again, most young people voted to remain in the EU in that referendum. And those young people subsequently grew up into old people. They knew that they'd been sold a pup.
I'd like to say to young people, the Green Party believes in you, and we know that you're the most highly educated generation in history, but you're also going to be the first generation in history to be poorer than your parents.
That concludes the questions from me and the questions from the audience. What we'll need to do now is, if you guys could keep it short, wish me luck, and do your concluding sentences about where you stand and whether things have changed.
The personal thing I want to say is it's much more important to reform the EU than leap out into the Atlantic Ocean on some vague hope of some sort of ideal sort of free trading nation. I really, really worry about what's going to happen to my country.
I would simply say, why on earth would we not want to be part of an alliance with our neighbours, with our nearest neighbours? Certainly something that's ensured the peace for the last 60 years.
I believe ultimately in democracy, and if this was the decision that was taken by this country, we should try to put aside our political dogmas and try to be adults and solve these things for our future generations.
I think that the division is more along, really, your orientation towards uncertainty and towards your own sense of being able to shape things and your trust and confidence in your fellow citizens to join you in that.
Thank you.
And you're on behalf of both, from representation from UKIP, so if you could conclude.
It's my fervent hope that actually the negotiations to come out will be conducted in a mature way, and the agreement that's made between ourselves and the EU is one that's beneficial both to the EU and to ourselves.
What I've seen in the campaign about the EU is a lot of mudslinging and a lot of name calling, and I don't like that. And I think that if you sling mud and if you call names, then that divides people. I think what we need to concentrate on is what everyone wants, rather than whether someone's sexist or racist or whatever, because those are judgments.
And I think it's proved that we are a country with massive division after Brexit. We yet to see whether it's an apocalypse or a beacon of hope for the young, but that will prove to fruition in the next few years.